Hello and welcome to this section of the MATLAB tutor. Here we are going to learn how to join matrices together or join vectors together to form larger matrices. So we're just kind of learning how to build up. Occasionally you might have some data sets that need to be joined or merged into a single matrix element or to a single matrix entity. So the easiest way to do that is let me call vector 1. We'll just define it as 4, 5, negative 1, 0. So that's vector 1. Vector 2 we'll call 4, 4, 4, 3. So I have two vectors, vector 1, vector 2. Each one of them has 4 elements, right? 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, so I can call matrix. I can join these guys together by the following. I can say vector 1, semicolon, vector 2. And if you think about it, this makes total sense because vector 1 is defined to be this bracket, with all these elements inside. So vector 1, all these elements are going to go on the first line of this matrix. Semicolon means go to the next line. Vector 2 is all of these elements. So literally I've told MATLAB, use the elements from vector 1 for the first row and the elements for vector 2 of the second row. And so we get a matrix that is exactly what we expect. So it's something that you might have occasion to do. Go ahead and clear the screen here. You can continue this whole idea. You can create something. Let's do small matrix 1. Let's create a small matrix just real quick. 4, 4, 4, semicolon, 3, 3, 3, semicolon, 2, 2, 2. So this guy's a matrix that looks like this. Small matrix 1. Small matrix 2 is going to be, let's do, 6, 6, 6, semicolon, 7, 7, 7. Okay. So here we have small matrix 2. So now if we call big matrix, and inside of this guy we put small matrix 1, semicolon, small matrix 2, let's see what happens. And you can see I forgot to put an equal sign in there, so let me just retrieve this guy and set an equal here. So big matrix is going to equal to the construction of this guy here, and you can see I have a large matrix that's formed. So big matrix literally is the elements of small matrix 1, which is up here. So these elements here, sort of in the the first part of the matrix, and then I'm appending to that in the subsequent rows the elements of small matrix 2. Now let me show you one gotcha before we go any further. Let me look at vector 1 and vector 2, and then what did we did a matrix. We put those two guys together and we formed this matrix here. Let me do vector 3. Let me create vector 3, and I'll just do it as 4, 3, 2, like this. So here's vector 3. So now, what do you think is going to happen if I try to add vector 3 in? It is some additional elements into this matrix. So what I can do is I can say matrix 2, we create another matrix, and I'm going to say, okay, let's put the elements of vector 1 for the first row, let's put the elements of vector 2 for the second row, and let's put elements of vector 3 for the third row, and let's see what happens. MATLAB does not like that because I'm trying to create a matrix here. I'm saying go ahead and put the elements for vector 1 in the first row. Okay, so we have 4 elements. Elements for vector 2 in the second row, there's the 4 more elements. Elements for vector 3 in the third row. I've only provided 3 elements. MATLAB is not going to pad anything with zeros. It thinks vector 3 is really only 3 elements. So if you try to create a larger matrix with 4 elements for the first row, 4 elements for the second row, and 3 elements for the third row, you can't do it. You have to have the equal number of elements in the column so that what you end up with is a matrix that looks like something. You can't have a matrix with 4 elements, and then 3 elements in the third row. It just isn't possible. So the way to fix that would be to add another element here. You have to have 4 elements. So now vector 3 contains 4 elements, and now if I rerun this command again, vector 1, vector 2, vector 3, each on different rows, then I can create my matrix because you have to have it, you have to have the dimensions correct to do that. So just a short section showing you how you can have either vectors, which don't forget are just matrices with 1 row, or matrices using those guys to build larger and larger matrices. There could be a chance when you might use that if you have different data sets or something that you have to merge together in order to do some sort of analysis on it. So make sure you understand that. The syntax is really intuitive. Once you understand how MATLAB works, then the syntax behind this is really not a big deal.